The stock market crash of 1929. Many believe that the stock market crash that occurred on Black Tuesday, October 29, 1929, is one and the same with the Great Depression. In fact, it was one of the major causes that led to the Great Depression. 2 months after the original crash in October, stockholders had lost more than $40 billion. Even though the stock market began to regain some of its losses, by the end of 1930, just was not enough, and America truly entered what is called the Great Depression.
During the Great Depression, there were a ton of bank failures, also known as bankrupts. Throughout the 1930s, more than 9,000 banks have failed or faced bankrupt. As the banks failed and deposits were uninsured, people started to lose their money. Banks were unsure or concerned about their survival and economic situation. Banks started to deny any loans. The stock market crashed.
With the stock market crash and the fears of further economic woes, individuals from all classes stopped purchasing items. This then led to a reduction in the number of items produced and thus a reduction in the workforce. As people lost their jobs, they were unable to keep up with paying for items they had bought through installment plans, and their items were repossessed. More and more inventory began to accumulate. The unemployment rate rose above 25%, which meant, of course, even less spending to help alleviate the economic situation.
American economic policy with Europe. As the business began failing, the government created a tariff in 1930 to help protect American companies. This charged a high tax for imports, thereby leading to less trade between America and foreign countries, along with some economic relation. The richest 1% of Americans owned over one-third of all American assets. Such wealth concentrated in the hands of a few limits economic growth. The wealth tended to save money that might have been put back into economy if it were spread among the middle and the lower classes. Middle-class Americans had already stretched their debt capacities by purchasing automobiles and households on installment plans.
While the drought that occurred in Mississippi Valley is not a direct cause of the Great Depression, it was a big factor. It was so catastrophic and large that many were unable to pay their taxes. Some were even forced to sell their land because of the expenses that came along with owning and maintaining it. While this wasn't the only drought that occurred during the Great Depression, it was the biggest, and the one that most people would think about if you asked for an example of a drought during the Great Depression.